Greetings, Seawolves, and welcome to a very special newscast from the Stony Brook School of Communication and Journalism. I'm Jake Aricchio. First up on the show tonight, we have the results of the long-awaited New York elections. This year, the hot ticket item was the mayoral race, where 34-year-old Zohran Mamdani defeated former Governor Andrew Cuomo and Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa.
A surge of over 2 million New Yorkers cast their votes last night in elections across the 5 boroughs. The most watched battle of the night was the mayoral race between New York State Assemblyman and Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani, Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa, and former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. The race was called for Mamdani less than an hour after polls closed. Cuomo ran as an independent after losing the Democratic primary in June. The mayor-elect ran on affordability, no-cost childcare, and fare-free buses. Mamdani secured his swift victory thanks in part to young, non-white renters with varying levels of education across the city. Mamdani won every borough except for Staten Island, which went candidly to Cuomo. This is the first time since 1985 that Staten Island voted for a non-Republican candidate. In his unprecedented mayoral run, nearly $13 million of Mamdani's campaign donations came from public funds, with Cuomo receiving the bulk of private contributions. Races across the city were swept by Democratic nominees, including incumbent public advocate Jumaane Williams and newly elected comptroller Mark Levine. On Long Island, Republicans will maintain its majority, especially in areas like Nassau County, where all 3 Republicans, Bruce Blakeman, Ann Donnelly, and Elaine Phillips, won their elections. In Suffolk County, the incumbent Republican Raymond Tierney ran unopposed for district attorney, as did incumbent Democrat Errol Tulin Jr. for sheriff.
Thank you, Gabby. With a sweeping Democratic victory taking place last night, we spoke to Stephanie Kelton. The economist and current interim dean of Stony Brook School of Communication and Journalism told us what we should expect of Mayor-elect Mamdani.
I think the safest thing for voters to expect is that they've elected someone who is sincere about trying to deliver on the agenda that he ran on, but I think realistically you also have to understand, and I think he's done a pretty good job of making this clear, that he can't do all of these things alone. In some cases he's going to need help from Albany, because as a mayor he can't raise taxes and get a lot of the revenue that he wants for some of the more expensive things he wants to do, like universal free childcare. So people are going to have to show him some grace, I think, and they're also going to have to stay committed. You can't just show up to the polls and vote and then expect everything to just fall into place. You have to stay engaged as voters, and he's going to need their ongoing support to get the kind of pressure at the governor's level, at the state legislature level, in order to be able to carry out a lot of what he wants to do.
Democrats gained substantial ground from east to west in several elections.
It was an election night sweep for the Democratic Party. Across the Hudson River, voters in the traditionally blue state of New Jersey elected Democratic Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill to the governorship, beating out Republican nominee Jack Ciattarelli in a tight race.
It's going to take a strong governor here in New Jersey to claw back resources and keep our streets safe.
In Virginia, former Democratic Representative Abigail Spanberger is projected to make history as the Commonwealth's first female governor, beating out Republican nominee Winsome Earl Sears 4 years after Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin won in a major upset.
Virginia chose pragmatism over partisanship.
Meanwhile, Democrat Ghazala Hashami has won the lieutenant governor's race, and Democrat Jay Jones has won the attorney general's race. And on the other side of the country, Californians overwhelmingly voted to pass Prop 50, which will temporarily redraw the state's congressional map through 2030 to increase the Democrats' chances of winning 5 GOP-held seats, which is a response to recent redistricting efforts by Republican-held states.
Earlier today, we asked political science professor Andrew Engelhardt for his thoughts on these developments.
They kind of reflected a general tendency in these off-cycle elections where election outcomes kind of like go against the incumbent kind of like presidential party. We might think that that's puzzling because we're voting on like local or statewide offices, but typically a lot of at least in present politics, what changes between general elections and these kind of off-cycle elections is you get some people that are just fed up, and they were fed up in the last election, and they're still fed up, and so they just are fed up at different people. Toward the Democratic Party, if we look at places like Virginia and New Jersey, most all statewide candidates, even Virginia's Attorney General, beat Harris's margins pretty kind of reliably Democratic areas. So it seems that there's much more. At least if we take these vote shifts as indication, enthusiasm or momentum for the party. What the party would need to do, though, is kind of maintain that over the next 11 and a half months. And there's a lot that could happen, right?
There are plenty of adjectives that describe our president. Quiet is not one of them. For more updates on President Trump's reactions to Tuesday's elections, we go to our correspondent in the newsroom, Sky Crabtree. Sky, what could you tell us about President Trump's reaction to Mamdani's victory?
Well, Donald Trump has never exactly been thrilled about the possibility of Mamdani being the mayor of New York. Ever since the 34-year-old Democratic Socialist won the Democratic primary for mayor, Trump has called him a communist and a radical, and he even endorsed his main rival, Andrew Cuomo, just before the polls opened on Election Day. Listen to the threat he made on 60 Minutes to claw back funding from New York if Mamdani won the election.
What if Mamdani becomes mayor?
It's going to be hard for me as the president to give a lot of money to New York because if you have a communist running New York, all you're doing is wasting the money you're sending there. So I don't know that he's won, and I'm not a fan of Cuomo one way or the other, but if it's going to be between a bad Democrat and a communist, I'm going to pick the bad Democrat all the time, to be honest with you.
Trump continued this sentiment in a speech he gave in Miami today, where he accused the Democrats of trying to hurt America by electing candidates like Mamdani. Take a listen.
If you want to see what congressional Democrats wish to do to America, just look at the result of yesterday's election in New York, where their party installed a communist as the mayor of the largest city in the nation.
And we don't know exactly what's going to happen next, but if there's one thing we know for sure, it's that we can anticipate a lot of battles in the future between City Hall and the White House on both the legal and political fronts. Back to you.
Thank you, Scott. Well, tragedy has unfortunately struck Kentucky as a United Parcel Service cargo plane crashed shortly after takeoff from Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport, killing at least 9 people on board. Officials say the twin-engine aircraft went down in a grassy area just south of the runway around 5:15 p.m. local time, bursting into flames upon impact. The flight, operated by UPS Airlines, was bound for Dallas-Fort Worth when it reported mechanical issues shortly after takeoff. According to the Federal Aviation Administration, the pilots attempted to turn back towards the airport but lost altitude before crashing less than a mile from the runway. Investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board and the FAA are now on site. The NTSB says it will be leading the investigation and plans to release a preliminary report within 30 days. Though UPS is a major global logistics operator, its aviation arm has confronted a number of safety challenges over the years. For instance, the cargo jet involved in the Louisville crash has been involved in 11 separate accidents since 1993. UPS issued a statement expressing condolences to the families of the pilots, calling them, quote, valued members of our UPS family. Louisville's mayor also extended sympathies, thanking first responders for their quick action in containing the fire and preventing further injuries. This is the first fatal UPS cargo plane crash since 2013, when a cargo jet went down in Birmingham, Alabama, killing 2 crew members. The government shutdown has officially made history. Wednesday marks 36 days since the United States government closed its doors on October 1st, marking the longest ever shutdown. President Donald Trump has now been in office for the 2 longest shutdowns in U.S. history, as the current closure passed the 35-day shutdown from 2019. The president has pressured Republican lawmakers to end the shutdown today, even though it requires help from Democrats. Quote, we must get the government back open soon, adding that it's time for Republicans to do what they have to do, and that's terminate the filibuster. In the meantime, many federal workers have been left without paychecks and other crucial benefits, while travel hubs across the U.S. see major delays. While the doors of Congress remain walled shut, military action is still very much on the table, as President Trump has threatened U.S. military intervention in Nigeria, accusing the government of failing to protect Christians from Islamic militant groups. In a post on his Truth Social account, Trump warned that the U.S. would halt all aid to Nigeria if the attacks continue. Experts say the ongoing conflict is driven by competition over land and water resources, but worsened by religious and ethnic tensions. Groups monitoring the violence say there is no evidence that Christians are being targeted more than Muslims in the nation, where the population is roughly split between the two faiths. Nigeria's government rejected its designation by the U.S. as a country of particular concern. Chief of Defense Staff General Olufemi Oluyede said his country faces terrorism, not persecution of Christians, and the Nigerian presidency would welcome U.S. help in fighting Islamist insurgents. While there have been plenty of updates in the world of sports, as baseball season has come to a close, football trade season has just begun. Kaylin Chan has more for us. Kaylin?
The Los Angeles Dodgers have won back-to-back World Series championships. The Dodgers defeated the Toronto Blue Jays in a thrilling 7-game series ending in Toronto. The Dodgers won Game 7 in a comeback win in extra innings. Catcher Will Smith's home run put the Dodgers in front with a 5-4 lead at the top of the 11th inning. The game was closed by the pitcher and World Series MVP Yoshinobu Yamamoto. The Dodgers took the trophy back home to LA for their parade and stadium celebrations. The New York Jets have stunned fans this week with jaw-dropping trades at the deadline. The Jets have a 1-7 record, and at the trade deadline, they traded all-pro cornerback Sauce Gardner to the Indianapolis Colts. They received 2 first-round draft picks and receiver A.D. Mitchell. The Jets have also traded defensive tackle Quinnen Williams, sending him to the Dallas Cowboys for a 2026 second-round pick, a 2027 first-round pick, and defensive tackle Mazi Smith.
Thank you, Kaylin. Well, that'll be all for us for the studio today. We'll continue to bring you coverage on breaking news. I'm Jake Aricchio. We'll see you soon.